Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one.
The introduction. In the quiet town of Maplewood, nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, life moved with an almost idyllic routine. Residents went about their daily business, exchanging pleasantries at the local coffee shop, and children rode their bikes along the sunlit streets. But in the shadow of this pastoral facade, an unsettling undercurrent coursed through the community, one that many chose to overlook until it was too late. It began when the phone call started. A single mother named Clara Cavanaugh received an anxious call from her 16-year-old daughter, Clara. Clara had been out with friends at the local skating rink, a favorite haunt of the teenagers. Her giggles and chatter carried through the line. But they turned ominous when Clara mentioned a stranger lingering near the entrance, watching her with unwavering intensity. Lisa urged her to come home, but the warmth of this mother-daughter connection would soon be shattered. That night, as the sun slipped below the horizon, Clara never returned. The rising panic transformed into frantic search groups. Friends, family, and concerned citizens combing through every inch of the town, calling her name as shadows lengthened and streetlights flickered to light. Hours turned into days with no sign of Clara. With each passing moment, the community began to feel the weight of dread settle in, a palpable reminder that safety often exists on a fragile edge, easily tipped by the unknown. Far away from Maplewood, a different narrative was unfolding. Investigators in a neighboring town were dealing with a series of unsettling disappearances that they couldn't ignore. Each missing person shared a common threat: a rendezvous point at a location buzzing with life, the local skating rink. As whispers began to circle, a sense of urgency grew. Detective Mark Jennings had seen his fair share of cases, yet nothing could prepare him for what he was about to unravel. The tight-knit town of Maplewood, the truth of Clara's disappearance, would soon ignite the fervor of a full-fledged investigation. The victim. Clara Cavanaugh was the kind of girl who seemed to light up a room, her laughter infectious and her spirit unyielding. With honey blonde hair framing her freckled face and her favorite blue hoodie draped over her slender frame, she was both a picture of youthful exuberance and a beloved daughter. Clara was the pride and joy of Lisa, who dedicated herself to providing a nurturing home after her divorce. Despite the struggles they faced, she had forged a bond with Clara that was fortified by respect and open dialogue. In the days leading up to her disappearance, Clara had been a whirlwind of energy. She juggled schoolwork with plans for her own birthday party, a milestone she eagerly anticipated. Though she had her typical teenage worries, like exams and friendships, there was an innocent enthusiasm about her that made her seem invincible. Clara and her friends had spent hours preparing invitations, discussing decorations, and picking out the perfect cake. Her excitement was palpable, a stark contrast to the storm that would soon engulf their lives. On the night she vanished, Clara had mentioned to Lisa that she wanted to unwind after a hectic week. The skating rink was buzzing with chatter and laughter, a safe harbor for teenagers on a Friday night. The fluorescent lights illuminated the scene, and the music echoed like a heartbeat through the maze of skaters. To them, it was nothing more than a weekend ritual, a place to belong, to find companionship, and to revel in the freedom of adolescence. As Clara donned her skates and glided through the throng, she felt a thrill. Her friends cheered her on as she maneuvered effortlessly around the ring, but unbeknownst to her, a pair of eyes lingered where they shouldn't have twin pinpoints of hunger hidden among the crowd. The stranger, a man in his late 20s, with disheveled hair and a loose denim jacket, stayed out of view. His presence, almost imperceptible, amid the joyous chaos surrounding. In the aftermath of Clara's disappearance, her friends would recall the last moments spent together. The laughter that echoed like hollow promises. They would remember the fleeting glance that Clara had cast over her shoulder at the man who would become forever etched in their memory, faceless figure woven into the fabric of that night. With each passing hour, what could have been a simple celebration morphed into the essence of fear and confusion that would grip Maplewood, turning an innocent outing into a haunting reality from which the town might never fully recover. The crime scene. The morning light broke over Maplewood with an eerie tranquility, but beneath this facade lay a sense of dread, palpable and unshakable. Days had passed since Clara vanished, and as the sun rose on the fourth day, hope began to dwindle. Local law enforcement, emboldened by the growing urgency of the community, began their search in earnest. Detective Mark Jennings arrived at the skating rink, the site that had become the focal point of their investigation. The scene was strikingly ordinary. Families gathered outside, some with worried expressions, clutching cups of coffee, others expressing disbelief. A faint chill hung in the air that morning as Jennings stepped inside. The skate shop's colorful posters still plastered on the walls, the smell of popcorn and soda lingering in the air like a sickening reminder of what should have been a joyful weekend. Investigators had established a perimeter, tape marking the boundaries where no one could pass. They began their methodical examination of the rink, meticulously scrutinizing every corner, every inch of the space that had welcomed laughter just days before. Inside, the bustling atmosphere felt different. The usual soundtrack of music and laughter had been replaced with whispers and an unspoken tension. As Jennings surveyed the rink, he couldn't help but notice the gaps where skaters had once glided with carefree abandon. A group of anxious friends huddled close, and their laughter now replaced by quiet sob. They had become unwitting witnesses to an unsettling reality. They recounted their memories from that fateful night, their eyes wide, voices trembling as they relayed every detail, minute, and grand. In the rear corner, where the sparse lighting failed to illuminate the shadows, an officer discovered a discarded chua-pink roller skate, scuffed yet distinctly Clara's. It sat alone, stark against the concrete floor. A chilling symbol that Jennings felt a pit form in his stomach. The small piece of evidence sent shockwaves through his being. He knelt beside the skate, scratching the surface with his gloved finger, careful not to disturb the scene further. The bustling energy that had emanated from this community hub moments before was now suffocated by an overwhelming tension, a cacophony of uncertainty, grief, and fear. The rink, once a sanctuary, had become a scene of chaos and despair, holding on to the secrets of that night. As investigators continued to comb through the space, one question lingered in Jennings' mind. Who preyed upon the innocent in this town that had prided itself on its safety? The answer, he knew, was buried beneath layers of deception and darkness, waiting to be unearthed. The early investigation. With the sun dipping below the horizon, Detective Mark Jennings gathered his team for a briefing in the back corner of the skating rink. The fluorescent lights hummed above, casting a harsh glow over the concerned faces of his colleagues. Tensions were high, palpable in the close area, as each member prepared to pursue leads, clutching their notepads filled with scribbled notes and observations. Jennings began with the basics. Clara Cavanaugh, 16 years old, a bright student well-liked among her peers. This case, he argued, wasn't just another missing person. It was a reflection of their community's fragility. He reminded his team that they would need to tread carefully, both in their investigation and interactions with the town's residents, who were already racked with anxiety. The early stages focused mainly on gathering information about Clara's movements, leading up to her disappearance. Officers fanned out, canvassing the neighborhood, interviewing friends and family alike. Each conversation peeled back layers of Clara's life, revealing the threads of teenage existence, her plans, her concerns, her dream. Among those interviewed was Clara's best friend, Emma, a girl with tear-streaked cheeks and trembling hands. Emma recounted the moments leading up to their departure for the rink, recalling Clara's exuberant spirit, yet clinging to her memories was a spectral fear and unsettling feeling that she couldn't shake. She remembered the stranger lurking near the entrance, and with every recollection, Emma's voice clouded. He just stood there, staring. I thought it was nothing. With this lead, investigators began pulling footage from security cameras, scrutinizing every frame of moving images. Officers combed through hours of recordings from the skating rink. They exchanged snippets of conversation, connecting the threads between mundane details and the sinister shadow of uncertainty that loomed over them. As they sifted through footage that featured giggling teens and joyful families, a figure loomed in the background, a tall man with a loose jacket and unkempt hair, standing with an unsettling stillness. Jennings' heart raced as he watched him approach the entrance, his eyes seemingly fixed on Clara as she approached with Emma. This moment fell hidden in plain sight, a ticking clock with two faces. The processing of this evidence revealed pieces of a puzzle Jennings couldn't ignore. They began to construct a profile of this elusive man, working against time as they reversed the ticking clock. Desperation turned to mobilization as they worked to identify the figure in the footage, their investigation quickly shifting gears. The dark clouds of fate threatened to revolve around Maplewood, leaving everyone to question who might be next. What depths of darkness lay ahead? The dead ends. Days turned into nights, and as the relentless pursuit of Clara's whereabouts continued, each layer led to an agonizing sense of futility. The investigation, now in full swing, presented a series of dead ends that slowly chipped away at the hope clinging to the community. Detective Mark Jennings, fueled by a sense of urgency, felt the pressure mounting as the media storm swirled around Maplewood, amplifying fears that were already brewing in dark corners of the town. The faceless figure from the surveillance footage became a ghost, mysterious and elusive. Despite their attempts to identify him, the leads seemed to dissolve like fog under a rising sun. The van's operators had scoured neighboring businesses, hoping to piece together accounts of the man's interactions, but the descriptions remained frustratingly vague. Witnesses noted he appeared to be a vague figure in the shadows, a mere silhouette against the glow of a vibrant evening. As Jennings pressed forward, he initiated interviews with local residents, hoping their familiarity with the town would yield something useful, but the answers grew increasingly convoluted. The usual town gossip, which once provided insight, now offered confusion. Countless names and possible sightings only muddled the investigation. He learned of a similar man who had been seen weeks before the incident at the diner and a transient reported at the bar. Yet each lid dissipated like dust, leaving nothing substantial behind. Frustrated yet determined, Jennings turned to Clara's social media accounts, hoping digital breadcrumbs could lead them to her whereabouts. What he found was typical for a teenager: snaps of vibrant moments drenched in normalcy. Birthday parties, school events, and candid shots with friends. Yet they missed the nuance of the apprehension found in her eyes. Warning signs whispered through coded language hidden among the usual joys. Yeah. As hours turned into frustrating sessions of sorting through data, one particular detail stood out: an interaction Clara had with a stranger in the months before her disappearance. Someone she had mentioned in passing during casual conversations with her friends. Concerned parents quickly overwhelmed the investigators with calls, desperately trying to protect their children from a phantom threat the town now feared. With the investigation stagnating, Jennings scheduled a press conference to address the public, struggling to find the right words that would assuage anxieties while rallying the community for help. Standing before the phalanx of cameras, he felt the weight of the whirlwind emotions swirling around him. Fear, hope, and despair, held together by a thin thread. He invited anyone who might have seen anything, urging citizens to keep their eyes open for the familiar shadows that danced on the edges of their lives. Yet as he stepped away from the podium, Jennings couldn't shake the feeling that the answers were slipping further from their grasp, and each day without Clara only deepened the void. The hunt for truth had become a tangled web of uncertainty, and beneath the surface, a darkness lurked, waiting to be unveiled. A break in the case would began as a seemingly endless spiral of frustration finally turned with the dawn of a new day. The sun peeped over the horizon, casting a hopeful light across Maplewood. Detective Mark Jennings found himself back at the rink, staring at the stillness that had consumed it since Clara's disappearance. Yet, with a sense of resolve burning beneath the exhaustion, he was determined to regroup and re-examine every piece of evidence they had collected. Just as he settled into his thoughts, the familiar ping of his phone interrupted the silence. It was Officer Martinez, who had been sifting through a pile of social media tips when he stumbled across something peculiar. "Mark, you need to see this," he urged, urgency thick in his voice. A couple in Plainsview reported seeing someone matching that description talking to a girl at a diner late last week, 2 nights before Clara went missing. The potential lead charged through Jennings like an electric current. He led Martinez outside, and together they reviewed the footage shared by the diner. Sure enough, the grainy images captured a familiar figure, a tall, unkempt hair, and that same denim jacket. The footage showed him leaning across the counter, engaged in conversation with a girl who matched Clara's description. Time stopped momentarily as they felt the weight of this break in the case wash over them. The couple who reported the sighting described the girl as looking uncomfortable, but captivated by the man's unsolicited attention. It had been a chance encounter, and the man had left just before Clara. After a brief but unsettling exchange that bore a witness's concern, this detail ignited determination in jest. Interviews were needed, but their target had shifted the focus now on tracking down the man seen lingering in the diner. With urgency, Jennings reached out to the local police departments, communicating with Plainsview's detectives to coordinate an immediate outreach to the diner staff. They needed eyewitnesses to help paint a clearer picture of the encounter. Perhaps the waitress who had served them or glancing patrons could lead them closer to understanding what took place. Every detective on the task force prioritized it as a critical lead, mobilizing to canvass the diner and interview anyone who might have been there that night. The community, weary yet unwilling to abandon hope, rallied behind the renewed investigation, driven by the rekindled scent of possibility, mingled with fear. The pace quickened, and as they moved forward, Jennings could feel the wall of uncertainty begin to crack. Each conversation led to new insights, rallying others to identify the man lurking at the edges of their lives. The walls around Maplewood felt a little less suffocating, air crackling with that electric potential. They were inching closer to uncovering the depths of the mystery that lay hidden in shadows, a solitary light beginning to pierce through the dark narrative that had taken root in the town. A suspect. As leads began to coalesce, the figure who lingered in the shadows finally started to take a more definitive shape. Detective Mark Jennings and his team spent the early hours of the morning drowning in stacks of information, notes, and witness testimonies that had begun to accumulate like an avalanche of possibility. Among them, a name surfaced: the man from the diner, a local recluse known as Tyler Mercer. The detectives combed through Tyler's history and discovered a pattern. He had been arrested multiple times for petty offenses, but the records revealed something more troubling: a past that involved multiple reports of harassment and stalking. Despite these incidents leading to no significant consequences, they had painted a clear image of a man who thrived in shadows, manipulating anxiety into unhinged obsession. Jennings felt the weight settle in his stomach as he learned more about Tyler. The deeper they dug, the more unsettling it became. Neighbors described him as off but harmless, someone who could often be seen roaming the streets lost in his thoughts, engaging in odd behaviors that left others confused and concerned. Few had dared to confront him, allowing the discomfort to fester. After gathering enough intel, Jennings ordered a surveillance team to monitor Tyler's home in a dilapidated apartment complex on the outskirts of town. Their presence remained discreet, yet each member of the team felt a building tension, knowing now that they were pursuing a potential perpetrator who lurked with wide-reaching grasp. Then came the moment that would test their instincts. One afternoon, someone within the surveillance team spotted Tyler leaving his apartment, visibly agitated. He rushed towards a nearby wooded area, glancing over his shoulder as if paranoia had gripped him. The lead detective immediately called for backup, and the team followed in close pursuit, pipes thundering in sync with the pounding feel of impending confrontation. Upon reaching the wooded area, they found Tyler crouched near an old, rusty ship. Jennings approached slowly, maintaining a calm demeanor that belied the tension woven through his body. We need to talk. The man straightened, his eyes darting with unease. I haven't done anything wrong, he muttered defensively, coughing himself up, but the deep tremor in his voice betrayed his bravado. Light shone through the trees and caught on a glimmer of metal chain that was partly concealed beneath the brush. The officers quickly coordinately moved in, identifying it as part of a large lock. Jennings felt an unsettling certainty twist within him. This shed could hide the answers they were desperately seeking. As they took Tyler into custody, Jennings pressed him on his connection to Clara, noting the subtle shifts in the man's demeanor. For every denial laced with indifference, there slunk a flicker of fear behind glassy eyes. The truth was palpably close, yet the fear of what lay ahead tinged the air with uncertainty. At this moment, Tyler Mercer had transformed from a shadow to a suspect, and Jennings knew the walls were seemingly closing in. But the depths of this case still swirled with unanswered questions. What secrets lay within that shed? And would they lead them to Clara? The pieces of the puzzle had begun to fall into place, yet the delicate balance between resolving this nightmare and plunging further into darkness hung in the balance. The trial. Months had passed since Clara Cavanaugh vanished, but the culmination of witness statements, surveillance footage, and tireless investigation led to a decisive turning point: the trial of Tyler Mercer. The courtroom in Maplewood's modest courthouse was a stark representation of a community on edge. Residents packed shoulder to shoulder, eager for resolution, yet gripped with the haunting echoes of grief and anxiety that had seeped into their lives. Detective Mark Jennings sat among the spectators, pacing the flow of emotions that coursed through the room. Clara's mother, Lisa, sat in the front row, her eyes red-rimmed but resolute, feeling the weight of the community behind her. She appeared fortified by an unyielding strength, the kind forged in grief and desperation. The prosecution's case rested heavily on the threads of circumstantial evidence. Tyler's history of harassment, his alarming behavior leading up to Clara's disappearance, and that damning piece of footage from the diner, which depicted him engaged with Clara. Witnesses further corroborated the timeline, detailing sightings of him lingering near the skating rink that fateful night. Yet, defense attorney Sam Weathers, known for his strategic prowess in the courts, pushed back with equal fervor. He painted Tyler as an eccentric but ultimately harmless man, suggesting that the connection to Clara was circumstantial at best. As the defense laid out its narrative, they argued that it was a case of mistaken identity or societal scapegoating, manipulating the audience's fears as they clung to fragmented perceptions of who Tyler truly was. Throughout the trial, Jennings absorbed the details. He observed the proceedings' close-lived ebb and flow of testimonies, the roller coaster of emotions experienced by Lisa and those who knew Clara. He felt an unsettling knot in his throat as Clara's friends took the stand, recounting memories tinged with innocence now haunted by horror. Their voices quivered, each trembling word painting a picture of loss framed by the laughter that once echoed in the hallways of their youth. Amid the tension, moments of revelation occurred. A bombshell witness came forth, revealing a previously unknown interaction between Tyler and another young girl who had been targeted by him in a similar fashion months before Clara's disappearance. The courtroom fell silent as the implications reverberated through the air, a slow suffocation of hope that weighed heavy on every heart present. As closing arguments approached, Jennings felt the palpable strain and the earth weight of what was at stake. Would the jury find Tyler Mercer guilty? Or would they succumb to the doubts planted by the deft maneuvers of the defense? Typified by somber glances and held breaths, the community yearned for justice, yet uncertainty loomed over them like a dark cloud. Finally, the jury deliberated, and the moments dragged, each second stretching into what felt like a lifetime. When the jurors returned, the courtroom exhaled a collective breath held tightly. The foreperson announced the verdict: guilty of abduction and harassment, but not guilty of the more serious charges related to Clara's death, evidence proving lack of intent remained elusive. The verdict struck a bittersweet chord, leading to a swell of mixed emotions. Relief and sorrow intertwined in the hearts of those present, knowing that justice had been served even if Clara remained unfound. Lisa shed quiet tears as hope intertwined with heartbreak, grasping for solace beneath the weight of unresolved questions. With Tyler led away in handcuffs, Jennings felt a deep resolve settling within him. While the trial brought an end to one chapter, it also ignited a fierce determination to keep searching for Clara. As the courtroom emptied and the daylight faded, the search would continue in the shadow of Maplewood, a community bound by its scars, but united in the quest for truth and healing, standing watch over the lost girl whose laughter still echoed in their hearts. The aftermath. As the dust settled in the wake of the trial, the echoes of that fateful case lingered throughout Maplewood. Leaving behind a fractured town grappling with the reality of its losses, Clara Cavanaugh, once a symbol of youthful joy, now stood as a haunting reminder of vulnerability. And with her absence came a ripple effect that transformed the lives of those she had touched. The days following the trial saw a shift in the community's atmosphere, populated now with hushed conversations and an undercurrent of vigilance. Local businesses that once thrived on the bustling energy of families began to close earlier. Residents felt an ominous weight in their chests, and a familiar laughter that filled the streets became wary whispers. They grieved Clara publicly. Banners adorned with "Find Clara" still hung at the town square, but now wore the poignant stains of time. Detective Mark Jennings dedicated himself to ongoing efforts to locate Clara. Despite the constraints of the formal investigation licensed by the trial's outcome, he organized search parties and promoted volunteer drives, urging community members to come together, fueled by hope and the desire to find closure. Yet, with each passing day, the search yielded only shadow snow sightings. No clues, nothing but unanswered questions swirling through the minds of volunteers grappling with doubt. Lisa Cavanaugh fought to reclaim her life while navigating an existence forever altered. Clara's bedroom became a sanctuary of memories, adorned with photos of happy moments that felt like echoes of a distant life. Lisa embraced her daughter's friends, eager to keep Clara's spirit alive in stories and laughter, holding on to every reminiscence that provided solace in her sorrow. She attended support groups for families of missing persons, finding comfort in shared heartache, surrounded by others with hollow eyes that mirrored her own. In time, media interest faded, and with it, the momentum that had fueled the search began to wane. Yet Jennings refused to relent. He pursued leads that came in the wake of small tip showers, spent poring over databases, speaking with individuals who had crossed paths with Tyler Mercer in the past. His determination remained unwavering, driven by the plea he had made to Clara's mother. "I will not stop searching. I promise you." In September, as the first autumn leaves began to turn, Jennings learned of a series of new leads, suggesting sightings of a young girl matching Clara's description in neighboring towns. Though unverified, these flickers of hope reignited his spirits, and with the community's support, he organized efforts to investigate each lead, from local motels to transient shelters. As the chill of winter crept toward Maplewood, a noticeable resilience formed among the townspeople. They came together to host candlelight vigils in Clara's memory, her name a rallying cry that refused to fade. Candles flickered alongside whispered prayers and spoken promises to never forget, cementing their bond as a community united in action. With each flickering flame, hope blossomed, a new reminder that within heartache and tragedy, the human spirit has an uncanny ability to endure and heal. Though the shadows of Clara's disappearance lingered in every corner of Maplewood, a collective strength emerged, threads of connection woven into a tapestry of unwavering resolve. And while Clara remained missing, the search for justice had not been in vain, for in her absence, She had inspired not just the fear of loss, but the courage to combat it, a legacy remembered with every candle lit in her honor. The flickering beacon in the darkness, urging the town to keep searching until the truth was unearthed. Bow. Reflection. Weeks faded into months, and as winter embraced Maplewood with its cold grip, the scars left by Clara Cavanaugh's disappearance endured. The town was forever altered, and an underlying melancholy shadow cast over the familiar landmarks. Forests no longer held the playful laughter of children. The skies loomed heavy with a sense of longing. Many persevered. They grew stronger, but the questions remained, printed indelibly in their hearts. Detective Mark Jennings often found himself reflecting on the case. He grappled with the remnants of doubt whether they'd done enough, whether they could have caught her sooner, or if they had let her slip through their fingers altogether. The truths of the investigation became a kaleidoscope, ever shifting, revealing moments of both clarity and confusion. This uncertainty fueled his quest for truth more than any threat of failure ever could. Lisa Cavanaugh became an emblem of resilience, advocating for other families embroiled in the torment of missing loved ones. Her determination to keep Clara's memory alive blossomed into a community foundation aimed at prevention and support for those enduring similar fates. This evolution catalyzed healing for both herself and those around her, testament to Clara's unwavering spirit.